What's up, gamers? The Red Dragon here, and we are checking out some Battlefield 3 gameplay and checking out a story that has been in the news cycle for the last couple of days, and it has to deal with school. And we've all been to school, or we're in school at this point, and so you may have had some experience with this. I know I have. And the subject is corporal punishment, i.e. spanking, whipping, paddling, whatever it is that you want to call it. In the United States, there are 19 states that allow this form of punishment. So if a person gets out of hand, or they're acting up, or they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, this is a form of punishment that can be administered. You can go out into the hall or go into another room. The teacher has a big paddle or a big piece of wood, for those of you who don't know what a paddle is, and they take it to your ass. And so you might get spanked a few times. It may sting, and then you go back into the classroom. Now, the reason this is a popular choice is because it is fast. Some say that it's effective and that it gets you back into the classroom immediately. So if you're sent to detention or you're suspended, you're sent home, then you're not in the classroom and you're not learning. So what they say is this is actually a pretty good form of punishment, and that is definitely up for debate. Now, the reason this gets brought back into the news lately is because there was a couple of girls. They were 16 years old, and one of them was allowing somebody to cheat off of her test paper. So she got caught, and so the punishment was a couple of days of detention. She went to detention. She went through her first day, and on the second day, they asked her, hey, if you want to be paddled, you can go back to class now. So she took them up on this offer. Now, the paddling itself isn't the problem with the parents. The parents were upset, but they knew that the child was about to be paddled. They didn't have any issue with that. But when the 16-year-old girl came home, she had bruises all over her butt. So the parents asked, who actually administered the paddling, and it turns out that it was a male faculty member that did this. Now, at this particular school, there's a rule in place that says if there's a paddling, then it's supposed to be administered by a person of the same sex. So if it's a female girl, then it should be a woman who actually paddles her. And so this rule was broken. They had a school board meeting, and were trying to decide if something should be changed, if they should abolish this. And what they did was just simply expand the rules. So what they changed the rules to say that, yes, male teachers can paddle female girls. So they just basically made it okay for them. So I thought this was an interesting topic because, as I went through school, I saw a number of paddlings in my life. I live in Tennessee, and corporal punishment is definitely live and well in this state. And, when we were younger, boys would come back and they would, have all welled up eyes and stuff, and what happened to them. So everybody would kind of be giggling. And so when we were little, it seemed to be pretty effective. And then as we got older, it seemed like it was almost like a sign of respect if you got paddled. Like it was something to brag about. Like, hey, so and so, they whipped me earlier today, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool, or whatever. So as we got older, it kind of lost its touch, at least in my experience with it. Now, I've had a couple of whippings in my lifetime from school. The first one was in kindergarten, and for those of you who aren't in America and you don't know what kindergarten is, I don't know if you have it in other places or not, but it's basically like the first or one of the first levels of the education system. So it's not really a class like first grade through 12th. It's actually just kind of like a pre-class or something. So anyway, during this kindergarten experience, we had nap time, and I freaking love nap time. I wish they would have kept nap time around throughout my entire school experience, and I still take nap time occasionally. But either way, when you're little and you're a boy, for some reason, we have it set in our minds that you're supposed to do things to girls in order to get them to recognize you. And sometimes it may not seem like the most logical thing. So there was this girl in class that I liked, and I thought that the best thing I could do was to pick on her. And so during nap time, I was sneaking over near her, and I was making all kinds of growling noises and, making my voice sound like the devil. And so I was scaring her, and she actually ended up pissing her pants. And in the end, I never got a date with this girl, and I ended up getting caught, and I ended up getting a paddling for that. Now, was this effective? Well, I didn't make any more growling noises, so I guess in a way it could have been effective, but I think it also would have been just as effective to take me out of class and say, or explain to me why I shouldn't be doing this and why it was embarrassing for the girl to piss herself in front of everybody. So I think that would have been just as effective as whipping me, but either way, I got a whipping then, and I also got a whipping in high school. That one I don't necessarily count because we were in 4-H and the teacher, we had a good relationship as far as the student-teacher goes. We joked around and we liked each other. I liked her. I thought she was a good teacher. But she always, kind of teased me throughout the year and told me that she was going to figure out some way to whip me before the season was over. So near the end of the school year, I gave her a reason to whip me, and I threw a wad of paper at her head while she was teaching. So the funny thing about that was, while she went to go get another teacher to witness the paddling, because you have to do that, I went back into the classroom and got a bunch of magazines and stuffed them down in my pants. So I didn't even actually feel the whipping. So I was sneaky, I guess. But anyway, those are my two personal experiences with whipping or paddling. But, there's a big debate as to whether or not this is a legitimate form of abuse, or, a legitimate form of punishment, I should say. Because, having somebody beat at home and abused at home, that's definitely not the same as what most of these teachers do in class, which is spanking, which, stings a little bit, but it shouldn't leave bruises on you in the case that it did with this 16-year-old girl. But either way, so I want to say that I'm not trying to say that was abuse that I went through in school, but there's a big debate going on as to whether or not this is a legitimate form of punishment. And so before I did this video, I tried to read up several articles and get the opinions of both parents and non-parents and psychology people and people in the field who are having to deal with this, because, I don't have kids. And I try to think that if I did have kids, I would try to approach it in a way where I try to teach a lesson every time if my kids are in trouble, or I try to sit them down and explain to them what's happening. And the psychology people that I was reading, most of them all agreed that corporal punishment was not a good form of punishment. They said they listed out 11 different things that were negative about the corporal punishment. It showed resentment for the student towards the teacher. It didn't end up fixing bad behavior for long term. A lot of this has to deal with parenting at home and discipline at home. Just because you get discipline at school doesn't mean that it's going to solve everything, because it's not. You definitely have to have good parents disciplining you at home. But they were listing out all these negative things that happen when it comes to corporal punishment. And they said the only good thing that happens with it, there was only one positive thing, and that was the kid did behave for the short term in that setting. So you got paddling, you got sent back to the class. More often than not, it solved whatever the issue was, if the kid was talking or what. So my question is this: have you been paddled? Do you live somewhere where corporal punishment is acceptable? And was it effective? Was it effective for you, or have you seen it be effective? What do you think about spanking and corporal punishment? Because we don't allow it anywhere else in society. We teach our kids not to hit, but then we see kids being hit in school. And, it doesn't happen out in the workplace. It doesn't happen anywhere unless you're wrestling or you're in the UFC somewhere. So we try not to promote hitting, but yet this is a form of punishment. So what would your ideal punishment be? What happens in your classroom or has happened in your classroom that was effective, that wasn't corporal punishment? Or is corporal punishment the answer when it comes to kids misbehaving? And again, the reason why they chose this is because they can get kids back into the classroom a lot faster than suspension or detention. I would always say that, I knew most of my kids in school. I knew their parents. We live in a very small town. Everybody knows everyone. And I always thought that if you would have called their parents and told them about it, most of them would have been pissed off enough where that probably would have solved the issue right there. Or have them come and get the kid, and that'll piss them off if they have to leave work, or have somebody to come and get them for the rest of the day. And that might solve a lot of your issues. But again, you have a lot of parents out there who simply aren't very good parents and they don't care. So how do you solve this problem? What do you think about corporal punishment? And what's a good solution for kids being able to stay in school and learn? You gotta learn in school, and you can't have these distractions, which sometimes you do have. Post your comments below. Let me know what you think about this. And that does it for me, the Red Dragon. Be sure you like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I appreciate every single one. Thanks for watching.